There were 11 people, 10 men and 1 woman, hanging onto a rope that came down from a helicopter. They all decided that one person should get off, because if they didn't, the rope would break and everyone would die. No one could decide who should go, so finally, the woman gave a really touching speech saying how she would give up her life to save the others. Because women were used to giving up things for their husbands and children, giving in to men, and not receiving anything in return. When she finished speaking, all the men started clapping. While reading an article about fathers and sons drinking together, I realized, after all this time, that I had never taken my son out for a drink. So off we went to our local bar, which was only 2 blocks from the house. I got him a Guinness, he didn't like it, so I drank it. Then I got him a Killian's. He didn't like that either, so I drank it. Losing hope, I ordered him a Harp Lager. Nope, he didn't like that neither. I drank it. I thought maybe he'd like whiskey better than beer, so we tried a Jameson's. Nope, no cigar. In desperation, I had him try that 25-year-old Glenfiddich, the bar's finest scotch. He wouldn't even smell it. What could I do but drink it? By the time I realized he just didn't like to drink, I was so shit-faced I could hardly push his stroller back home. A guy calls a company and orders their 5-day, £5 weight loss program. The next day, there's a knock on the door, and there stands before him a voluptuous, athletic, 19-year-old babe dressed in nothing but a pair of Nike running shoes and a sign around her neck. She introduces herself as a representative of the weight loss company. The sign reads, "If you can catch me, you can have me." Without a second thought, he takes off after her. A few miles later, puffing and puffing, he finally gives up. The same girl shows up for the next 4 days, and the same thing happens. On the 5th day, he weighs himself and is delighted to find he has lost 5 pounds as promised. He calls the company and orders their 5-day £10 program. The next day, there's a knock at the door, and there stands the most stunning, beautiful, sexy woman he has ever seen in his life. She is wearing nothing but Reebok running shoes and a sign around her neck that reads, "If you catch me, you can have me." Well, he's out the door after her like a shot. This girl is in excellent shape, and he does his best, but no such luck. So for the next 4 days, the same routine happens with him gradually getting in better and better shape. Much to his delight, on the 5th day, when he weighs himself, he discovers that he has lost another 10 pounds as promised. He decides to go for broke and calls the company to order the 7-day £225 program. "Are you sure?" asks the representative on the phone. "This is our most rigorous program." "Absolutely," he replies. "I haven't felt this good in years." The next day, there's a knock at the door, and when he opens it, he finds a huge, muscular guy standing there wearing nothing but penis running shoes and a sign around his neck that reads, "If I catch you, you are mine." He lost 33 pounds that week. An elderly couple is flying to Hawaii for a 2-week vacation to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Suddenly, the captain announces over the public address system, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry to say that I have some bad news. Our engines are malfunctioning, and we will attempt an emergency landing. Luckily, I see an uncharted island below us, and we should be able to land on the beach. However, the odds are that we may never be rescued and will have to live on the island for the rest of our lives." Thanks to the skill of the flight crew, the plane lands safely on the island. An hour later, the husband turns to his wife and asks, "Honey, did we pay the car bill this month?" "No, sweetheart," she responds. Still shaken from the crash landing, he then asks, "Did we pay our credit card bill yet?" "Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot to send the check. One last thing, did you remember to pay the medical bill for the hospital visit last month?" he asks. "Oh, forgive me, sweetheart," begged the wife. "I didn't send that one either. The husband grabs her and gives her the biggest hug in 50 years. She pulls away and asks him, "What was the hug for?" The husband answers, "Don't you see? The debt collectors will find us." John left for a 2-day business trip, but he was only a few blocks away from his house when he realized he'd left his plane ticket on top of his dresser. He turned around and headed back to the house. He quietly entered the door and walked into the kitchen. He saw his wife washing the breakfast dishes, wearing her skimpiest negligee. She looked so good that he tiptoed up behind her, reached out, and squeezed her left tit. "Leave only 1 pint of milk," she said. "John won't be here for breakfast tomorrow." After just a few years of marriage built with constant arguments, a young couple and his wife decided the only way to save the marriage was to try counseling. They had been at each other's throats for some time and felt that this was their last chance. When they arrived at the counselor's office, the counselor jumped right in and opened the floor for discussion. What seems to be the problem? Immediately, the husband held his long face down without anything to say. On the other hand, the wife began talking 100 miles an hour, describing all the wrong things within their marriage. After 5, then 10, then 15 minutes of listening to the wife, the counselor went over to her, picked her up by the shoulders, kissed her passionately for several minutes, and sat her back down. The wife sat there speechless. He looked over at the husband, who was staring in disbelief at what had happened. The counselor spoke to the husband, "Your wife needs that at least twice a week." The husband scratched his head and replied, "I can have her here on Tuesdays and Thursdays." A little girl and boy are arguing about the differences between girls and boys, and which one is superior. Finally, the boy drops his pants and says, "Here's something I have that you'll never have." The little girl is quite upset by this since it is clearly true and runs home crying. A while later, she comes running back with a smile on her face. She sticks her tongue out at the boy and says, "My mommy says that with one of these, I can have as many of those as I want." So, a family had 2 young boys. One was an eternal optimist, finding good in everything, even terrible things. The other was a pessimist who could find no joy in the world at all. The parents, despairing of their boys ever leading healthy, fruitful lives, sought out a psychologist for help. The psychologist says, "I can cure both boys in a single afternoon." He told the parents, "Go buy a pile of the absolute most amazing toys and games you can find and fill up a room with them. When your pessimistic boy sees them all and learns they're all for him, he'll see that there is joy in the world and good things can happen. For the other boy, come over to my stables and collect a truckload of horse dung. Fill a room with the dung and put your optimist son inside. And when he sees all the amazing toys his brother gets and he only gets dung, he'll realize not everything has a silver lining." The parents, desperate for peace in their household and wanting both their children to lead happy, balanced lives, do as the psychologist says. They put each boy in their respective rooms and leave them alone for a few hours. When they come back, the pessimistic child is sitting on the floor, surrounded by all the wonderful toys, sobbing inconsolably. They ask, "What's wrong?" And he replies, "All these toys are just going to break someday or be stolen by other kids, so I can't enjoy them." Alarmed by this severe reaction, they hurry to go check on their other son. They find him standing on top of the huge pile of horse dung, wildly digging and hurling it over his shoulders, absolutely frantic, but with a big grin on his face. They ask, "Son, why are you smiling and digging in horse dung?" And he laughs and calls down to them, "With all this shit, there's got to be a pony in here somewhere.